When you joined the Marines, was there anything about the training, the basic training, that surprised you?
Well, no. Basically, the Marine Corps has an esprit de corps. The Marine Corps, my family had a background in being in the Marine Corps, so I knew all the Marine Corps slang. My father service in World War I. My father, however, did not go to France to the Marine Corps in World War I. He went to he served in Haiti because they were keeping order in Hades. But his second cousin was a Marine Corps hero in World War I. So we always heard a lot about Cousin Mike. Cousin Mike being a recipient of both the Navy Cross and the Army's Distinguished Service Cross in WWII, and before that, becoming a recipient of the Medal of Honor for the Philippine insurrection. So we heard a lot about Cousin Mike. So I had a natural affinity to the Marine Corps. I knew Marine Corps boot camp was not really a pleasant undertaking, but Marine Corps found is the esprit de corps, and the esprit de corps, the Marine Corps begins the day you arrive at boot camp, in which you're a civilian, again, the Marine Corps and the Navy did not take people entering under the selective service to late 42. So they were getting people who were eager to join. The eager to join are, of course, the people between 17 and 30 who aren't married, and you can you can bond with them well. And as I say, they take you as, in fact, they quote me in the Marine Corps Museum. I said, I arrived there a boy. And I left boot camp 7 weeks later, a man.
How about when you actually got into combat? Was it anything like what you were expecting?
Well, yes and no. Yes, you don't realize what it is when you read about people in books getting shot or killed, but then you come to experience it happening. And the advantage of the Marine Corps and their esprit de corps, the thing I always thought of, if you don't do what a Marine is supposed to do, you've disgraced the Marine Corps traditions that go back to the Tun Tavern on November 10th, 1775, when the Marine Corps was organized. You have all those Marine Corps heroes that you've learned about that went before you. You're going to disgrace them if you don't. So that'll work on you to make you go forward. But maybe you think maybe it's not a wise idea. So I think it's and the loyalty to your you have two loyalties, to your comrades and to the Corps.
You were severely injured, as you said, at Suicide Creek. Tell us what happened.
Well, it is on the second day of January 1944. The 1st Marine Division had landed on the 26th day of December on Cape Gloucester, New Britain. Of course, the 26th December there, as you know from being over here and being well traveled, that's the 25th of December in the United States. So we landed. Now, one thing I can remember, the Marine Corps, we landed off APDs, amphibious patrol destroyers. they were World War I four-stack destroyers, in which they'd taken 2 boiler rooms out of them and converted them to troop quarters. I can remember, well, they showed us a wonderful movie the night before we landed, Yankee Doodle Dandy. That's a good movie if they're going to get your blood and adrenaline pumping if they show you before. That's, of course, James Cagney starring in, and I always remember that movie. And some of the friends and my fellow men in the same squad and platoon are, I now always remember back, that's the last movie they're ever going to see. And that's a thought that always passes through my mind when I think back to that. Well, on this day, on the second day of January, the Marines, after landing on New Britain, we had expanded our bridgehead up to and including the capture of the Japanese airstrips on our right. Up to that time, the 7th Marines, which held the left flank of the perimeter, had simply held our position, while the men of the Marines of the 5th Marines and 1st Marines and reinforcement of the 5th Marines had captured the aerodrome. Now our mission on this day is to expand our bridgehead toward the east, to seize the area where the Japanese were using barges to bring reinforcements down the north coast of New Britain from Rabaul by way of Tallahassee. And with the 1st Battalion, there'll be 2 battalions committed. The 3rd Battalion, 7th Marines, which I was in, was on the left, and the 3rd Battalion, 5th, on the right. So we're going to be moving out and sweep the lines in front of our rifle pits that anchored the left flank of the beachhead. We begin the advance. We begin the advance about 8 o'clock in the morning. Now the 3rd Battalion, 7th, of which I'm a member of, is on the extreme left flank of our 2 battalion front. In fact, the 3rd Battalion, 7th, of which I'm the 2nd Platoon, 7th Marines, L Company, is on the extreme left. On our right would be the 3rd Platoon, 7th Marine, of Company L, 7th Marines. The company commander is Captain Moran. So we're moving in a skirmish line. It's through a rainforest. As people who live in Hawaii know, and people who have been in the islands, the jungle, if you're in the jungle, the upper story is where the jungle is. It keeps it artificially, reduces light close to the ground, but there is not very much vegetation on the ground. It's giant trees going up. So we advance about maybe a mile or so, and all of a sudden we're moving across. Generally the ground is very level through the tropical rainforest, in which, until you get about 40 feet above the ground, there are no branches on the trees. Then it gets a heavy growth. We come up and we approach they're flowing perpendicular to our line of advance is a stream, unnamed. Undoubtedly had a native name, but we don't know what it is, and it flows from the right to the south of us to the north, where it flows in to the Bismarck Sea. And as we arrived there, I'm a scout. Sackstetter and I are scouts for the 2nd Platoon, and we can see men about 40 yards from us. Now this, as we approach the edge of where the ground starts falling away, is when we spot them. The ground would fall away probably at about a 60-degree slope and lose about 25 feet. Then it comes to this small stream of water that's probably from where I'm sitting to that wall in width, probably say 8 to 9 feet in width. Then it goes up the same type of a declivity on the other side, and then it comes into the land where it levels off. And in fact, the level where we're standing, if you take 30 yards, the people opposite us, you can see them, and they ain't friends. You can see they had helmets on that are different. And we send the word back to Kennedy, the squad leader. There are people, we've come into the enemy. And he will contact the platoon leader, A.B. Gardner, and Gardner says, open fire. So we open fire on them. And just below the point where the ground slopes upward and then levels out on the other side, the Japanese had at least 3 pillboxes dug into the side. So we could not see, while we could see the Japanese that are standing on the level surface, on the slope we could not see the pillboxes. And after we'd fired maybe 2 or 3 minutes, we start to move forward. And I'm moved down probably from where the ground had been level. I've started to move down into the slope, going down to the stream. And I'm sitting on my haunches, looking ahead, and all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose. Off to my left, there's a pillbox. And fortunately, the Japanese in that pillbox have what is known as a Hotchkiss machine gun. It has a slow cyclic rate of fire. It's fed by a clip that they feed to the side. It was used heavily by the French Army in WWII. And it fires rather slowly. Poop, poop, poop. Then the Japanese had another type of machine gun, which probably I wouldn't be here if they were using them, was the Nambu. It fired a very high cyclic rate of fire. It went poop, 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 poop. And it opens fire, and you can see now in the machine guns, they as well as us, every 4th round is a tracer. And a good gunner, whether he's in the Japanese Army or the American Army, fires by tracer once he's opened fire. He's not looking at the sights. He's seeing where where the tracers are firing. He knows every third round is a ball, then there comes the tracer, and that's how they track it. And I know right offhand, probably about a short 10 yards to my left, they hit the guy named Silcox. He's a scout for the first squad. I was a scout for the second squad, as was Saxtetter. And he lets a yell out of him and starts up then with literally probably we're talking seconds now. The gun is traversing from my left to my right. He's moving across there. Now I don't know what's happening to the guys behind me, but they're getting it much worse than the guys along the line with me, because Silcox is going to survive. He'll lose his arm. The next guy that they hit is going to be the gunnery sergeant, John Mutarelli. And he's the next person to be hit. And he is hit, he's laying down, he's flopped down, and he gets hit to the upper arm. And then the next person to hit is right, probably about 3 yards to my left, Vito Percoco. And he's laying flat, and they hit him to the wrist and to the hand. And he jumps up, sprays some blood on me, and runs to the rear shouting, "I'm wounded for life, I'm ruined for life." Then they hit me in the left arm, to the elbow, which doesn't hurt bad because it cuts 2 of the 3 nerves in my lower arm. And that's why I'm very lucky I get hit with a Hotchkiss rather than Nambu, because the next slug is going to hit me in the right shoulder. And hits into the shoulder blade, and later I'll find out it lodges right above the pelvis. Fortunately, it didn't hit the pelvis, but it lost enough muscle velocity there. And then the guy next to me they don't hit, that's Barton. They evidently traverse back and forth across there. So right now, I'm laying at about a 50-degree angle with my head down this way, my feet upgrade from me. Saxtetter behind me, to my left and rear, has been hit through the upper legs. He will eventually die in a hospital, but he won't die for about 4 months from his wound. And they have us pinned down. They've knocked out our 2 BA-Arman. Speed is killed. Hughes is killed. And I can't name what order they're killed because they die almost instantly. There's no sound from them. They don't make any shout or any, so they evidently died instantly. So they have us now pinned down. So the 3rd Battalion, 7th is pinned down, L Company on the left, K Company on the right, and I Company in reserve. Then 3rd Battalion, 5th on our right, they're also pinned down. The Japanese are doing quite well. They've stopped our attack, and they're inflicting very heavy casualties on the Marines and not taking much themselves. After about an hour and a half, it's very obvious that unless we, the wounded people, can get up that slope some way and get up to the level ground where the slope began, we're all going to die. The Japanese, you could hear them talking in the tone I'm talking. They're not yelling, but you can tell them that you can hear them talking. And you're worried when they're going to attack, because they now have the upper hand. So I try to reverse myself, because I'm on an angle like this. And my left arm, I have no feeling in it below the elbow. And I know I'm shot. I know where the blood here is because I see the blood seeping up out through there. So I tried to get up. And this is the only time I really got angry or yelled anything. This is, I start to get up and they see me moving and they open fire again. And luckily, I've slipped down grade far enough. When they open up again, they hit me through, since my legs are on much higher elevation than my chest and head. They hit me and shoot the left side of my foot off. It's a flesh wound. It tears the flesh and the muscle off and hit me through the left gluteal region, which is your cheek, your butt. That's the fancy name, medical name for it. So I lay there maybe another half hour, and it was starting to get, it was clouding up, but I thought maybe I was dying or something if this was getting dark. So I decided I've got to get out of here some way. I had now noticed that Martin, who was about from me to Damien, is alive and not wounded. He's laying behind a stump of some type. And I'll say to Martin, can you give me a hand? If I can get turned around, I think I can get out of here. And Martin says, no, I'm not going to move. Then he says, I think I can reach you with my rifle. So he takes his rifle while he lays on the ground, grabs at the small of the stock, reaches over, and is able to hit my helmet with the muzzle of his rifle, which gets my helmet back so it's not in my eyes, so I can see which it is. So when the Japanese start the next time, the gun opposite me is firing to my right, because you can see where the tracers are going. I roll onto my side, and then I'm able to use my knees, which are now lower than my body, to push myself up to my knees and walk on my knees for about 3 or 4 yards till I reach the ground where you've come up, you've reached the apogee of the slope and you're on level ground. Whether I then, when I reached that, I dropped from my knees, so I'm laying flat. Now the Japanese spot me because I'm laying on my back because they're searching for me with their tracers. Now I'm sure the tracers are 2 feet above me, but you're laying there, they look like they're about 2 inches above your body because I'm laying on my back. I can see 3 dead people over to my right. They are undoubtedly Speed, Hughes, and Forbes. Forbes being the machine gun platoon that never got their gun into action. And there's a lot of calling back and forth, corpsman. And then the next thing I become conscious of, 2 men working their way toward me. They're laying on their bellies, pushing their knee, using their toes to dig in and push them ahead. When they arrive, one is Lieutenant O'Leary of our weapons platoon, the other is Pharmacist Mate Hartman. So they come up, they stay on the ground. They said, we're going to have to hug the ground. So now, first off, you used to carry in your medical pack, you carried on your belt, you carried a bandage, a compressed bandage, and a syringe of morphine, which I hadn't been able to use because my arms had been broken within a matter of seconds of each other. So Hartman gets a syringe of morphine out of his medical pack and gives me a couple of shots of morphine in the belly. And then they say, well, Bars, we can get you out of here, but we're going to have to crawl out and pull you. Because they're going to do the reverse way of coming. They'll use their toes to pull them, and use them, stick their toes out in front, then use the pressure to pull you that way. So one of them grabs me on the right, on my dungaree jacket, on the one side, one on the other. And the Japanese can see the motion, but they can't depress their gun enough to hit them or me again. So then they pull me probably back 30 yards. So the Japanese gun can't depress enough to hit them. When they do get to their knees, then get a stretcher bearers up and take you back to the aid station, which is about 200 yards further to the rear, where people can stand up at. So when you reach there, they put you on a stretcher. There are it's an aid station. A number of other casualties are there on stretchers. And the corpsman and the doc come to me, and the first thing they're going to do is they're going to have me on my back, and they cut my ankles both here and here, because being shot in the lower arm and this up here, they don't want to give me any plasma. They don't give you, when you're wounded, they don't like to give you whole blood. They'll give you whole blood back at the Regimental hospital. But the aid station, they simply give you plasma, which you don't worry about type A, type AB, or type O, because plasma is, the corpuscles have been removed. But that is to combat shock. So they drive two rifles into the ground with their bayonets on and stick one intravenous in here, the cut they've made here, one intravenous there. And then the next thing they do, you remember it very like it was yesterday. The corpsman says, "Are you shot any other place?" I said, "Yes, I'm shot, I know, in the heel. In the left heel, because I could see the side of my shoe had been shot off. And I've been hit someplace in the butt area." So he says, I remember this distinctly. He picked up my right foot. He says, "No, you're not shot in the foot." I said, "Try the other one." Then he knew I'd been shot there. I wasn't BSing him. Then after they have stopped the flow, they have the bleeding under control. They don't want to move your because I have serious damage to the left elbow, damage to the right shoulder, but no nerve damage in the right arm. So what they do then, they're ready to evacuate you. So the corpsman says, lights a cigarette. Now he forgot there were probably, in my squad, in the squad I was in, there were 12 people in, there were 3 people that didn't smoke. It was probably much higher of non-smokers in the squad I was in than normal. So I presumed I smoked. So he lit a cigarette in his mouth and stuck it in my mouth, and I spit it out. I said, sorry, Doc, I don't smoke. So then they got they're finally ready to evacuate us to the regimental hospital. Because all they're going to do at the aid station is combat shock and control bleeding and give you plasma. So I remember they carried me. I met a guy later, Perkins. He said, boy, you were heavy. Of course, I'm 172 dead weight. And I didn't know I was so heavy, as they carried me about probably a quarter of a mile, 4 stretcher bearers, to where they had jeeps. And they had jeeps rigged to take 6 stretchers, 3 on each side. And then it's back to the regimental aid station, the regimental hospital. There it's sterile, there it's clean, and there they wash you up and clean you up. And then they're also going to put splints on these are metallic splints they have on your arms. They don't want to do manipulate them, but they're going to have one on like this, one is straight like this, and one like this. And they then clean you up, and you're the same condition as you enter life when you come out of your mother's womb. You're naked. They've cleaned you up, they've controlled the bleeding, and they're ready for the next person to come in. Then they said, I'm sitting there as they're waiting to carry me into the ward, which is a long tent about as wide as this room and about probably twice as long, where they lie you in there stretcher to stretcher. But before they take me in there, the corpsman says, are you hungry? And I said, yes, I haven't had anything to eat since about 5:30 this morning. Now it is about mid-afternoon. So he said, well, I'll get a can of tomato juice. So he brings in a tomato. He said, do you like tomato juice? I said, yes. So he brings in a half-gallon can of tomato juice. Opens it with the key of the kingdom. And I drank half of it without stopping. Then I felt sorry for Corman, since he's holding the can, because I vomited it all over him. I guess that's the facts of life. So then they carry you in to the tent, the ward, where there's 2 rows of stretchers, one on that side, one on this side, with maybe, because there's very heavy casualties, maybe 2 feet between each stretcher. And there you remain. I remain now, I know from the hospital records, from the 2nd to the 5th. Occasionally someone would come down from the front and say how things were going, tell you who was dead, who had been wounded, how we're doing. They finally break the stalemate on the 3rd day of the next day. So the Japanese hold us at bay from the time I'm wounded, probably about 8:30, 9:30 in the morning on the 2nd, until dark on the 3rd. Our battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Williams, has lost it. He is unable to function in a way a Marine officer is supposed to get some way to get the attack moving. So Chesty Puller, the battalion executive officer, he comes up and relieves Williams right on the spot as leader of the 3rd Battalion 7th. They also do the same thing with 3rd Battalion 5th. They relieve that battalion commander and replace him with a person who will go on to a big name in the Marine Corps. And the next day they'll bring up bulldozers and tanks on the 3rd, and by the evening of the 3rd, they've broken the Japanese defense at that point, and will go on and will reach their objective at Hill 660 on the 13th day of January. So the next thing, they keep you pretty much in Never Never Land, keeping you pretty much giving you a shot about of morphine about every 4 or 5 hours to keep you out of pain. It stinks like the devil in there because of all the blood that seeps out of the wounds into the gauze. Now when they also, before they bandage you up, they want the wound to heal from the inside out. So they always jam the wounds full of gauze saturated in Vaseline. So the wound will heal from the inside out. Then on the 5th, they're going to evacuate all the wounded that have taken place during the period between the 2nd and the 5th. And they put us again, everybody's in a stretcher and carried aboard an LST, landing ship tank. And that's when I begin to get feelings that I am conscious of what's going on around me. From the time I go into the ward, and occasionally somebody talking to me who had been up on the line, telling what's happening, and who else is killed, or who else is wounded. I don't really remember anything coherent as even to tell the day between night. But I begin to recover pretty well on census on the LST, which is a 24-hour trip back to Oro Bay, where we go to an Army station hospital where we see our first nurses. There are no nurses until you get to a station hospital. There they clean you up and put you in plaster Paris. So I'm in plaster Paris from my waist to my neck, with my arms focused in this way, one like I'm throwing a right hook with my right arm and the left arm out like this. So they'll change them about every 4 or 5 days because they get so filled with gluck, which is pus and blood, that they get sticking so bad they have to remove them or they'd stick everybody else out of the ward. I spend about a week at Oro Bay in the evacuation hospital, flown across the Owen Stanley Mountains and over to Port Moresby, and again in a station hospital. And after 14 days after being wounded, I will arrive in the 42nd General Hospital at Melbourne, at Brisbane, Australia. And then be hospitalized till I get out of the Marine Corps on the 15th day of March 1946.